Perfect.
I
Okay.
can hear
Hi.
you.
Yeah.
Hi Komal and hi Tashdar.
Hi.
Perfect. Let's get started with the topic and with the discussion, and then hopefully in the way we'll get introductions as well sorted for people who haven't introduced themselves. I'm quickly gonna run through the format and what we do when and what is glass half full. Conscious that there are new people here today. So glass half full. Gulleen and I started this when lockdown first started, so it's been a while now, March last year, and we basically thought we need to have a community for psychologists where we don't have to wear a tie every time to speak up, or we don't have to write emails to just to talk. So we want it to be a little bit more candid, a little bit more free flowing, and just have a space where everybody can come up and speak. So less about listening and one person speaking and podiums, but more about let's have a discussion. What is the thought? Over time it has moved towards being more action based, so you will see every time we have a discussion we try to get some actions out of it and then hold each other accountable for those, because as a field of psychologists we can do a lot of research, we can talk a lot, but we need to start acting up and following up on those things as well. So that is the kind of format you'll see, like everybody chimes in and we jump in, and at the same time be conscious that this is 45 minutes only. We try, so we try to be succinct with our points, we try to keep our conversations short, crisp, but impactful, and we're just respectful for time and each other's opinions. So you can disagree, but we remember to be respectful about it. Today's topic, so today it took us a long time to zone in on what we want to call this session, walking with psychologists, but a little bit of context of how this came about. I work with a lot of psychologists, as we all do. You are all my fellow community members, and I work with a lot of people who work with psychologists, a lot of startups and a lot of different communities. And a lot of times I've got this feedback that as people who are not psychologists, it is difficult for them to communicate with us. What is it that we're trying to say? Why are our concepts so vague? What is with our fees? Like, how does it work? How do we know the value? And then I have some anecdotes, which I will not divulge in too much, but I've heard anecdotes where, oh, like I didn't have a great experience working with psychologists. Putting all that aside and thinking about what we can do to make it easier for organizations, for clients, for non psychologists to work with us. So, really, less about discussing problems and more about discussing the solutions. What is it that we can do to make other people's lives easier so that they can hire us, work with us, collaborate with us, do projects with us? 1 second, Chaitanya. That was just a dramatic pause.
Oh,
um, Before we get started, for especially for the new members, we love to drink here, so we always sit with a drink, and that is a rule. So if you don't have it for the first day, fine. You are not permitted in the room if you don't have your drinks for the next time. So please do. We don't accept water, Shivani. Very smart. Cheers. So cheers to that. Cheers to working with psychologists, making it better, getting some actions out of today. And if anybody had any opening statements, now's the time.
No opening statements, just thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to learn from all of you and to hear your perspectives. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. I'm very excited to see where this discussion is going to go.
Hopefully, that's no pressure. Um,
uh,
yeah, Chaitanya.
so yeah, so I would like to start by saying, from what I've understood so far, I think the basic problem lies in like the lack of awareness. So when I say lack of awareness, people actually don't have a proper awareness about who a psychologist is, because there is still that perception that psychologist, as Shalabh very often says, that it's about you know, things related to mind, so mind issues. So people actually often confuse psychiatrist and psychologist. So I think this is something that really needs to be, talked about, because unless there is awareness among the people, especially who are from non-psychology background, I think that's the half of the problem. So this is like similar to what HR is, that similar to how HR is being perceived. So whenever we talk about human resources, the first thing that comes to uh, people's mind is, oh, it's all about recruitment, it's all about Rangoli. But actually, like, HR is also beyond recruitment. So similarly, when we talk about psychology is something that is beyond, mind. It's now you have clinical psychology, you have organizational psychology. There are a lot of different fields. So I think as individuals, we first need to be aware of what uh, what who a psychologist is, and like the value that or the value or the impact they have on organizations. So how a psychologist can impact an organization in different ways, be it in terms of the organizational context, in terms of I would say clinical. So these are the things I would like to start.
Two things there, Chetan, and obviously great point. So people don't know. I would say 2021 and post pandemic, well, not technically post pandemic, but long enough way into the pandemic, people do know about psychologists. So I would agree with that maybe a year ago or maybe 2 years ago. But today I feel like they know, probably don't know as much as they should, or, the market isn't as open, but they do have a general sense of who a psychologist is and what they do. And the reason I say that is when my father came to me saying, that there is somebody you could help, that's when I knew that, there is some sort of awareness. Whereas 2 years, 3 years later, he was like, why are you doing psychology? What is it? So I've seen that shift. But the focus here is not what the problem is, like I always say, but what are we doing about it? So you're right. We probably need to define what is HR, what is psychiatry, what is psychology, but what are we doing about it? What is the action there?
May I say? Okay, so I'll just a few observations that I have seen. So a company works with a psychologist, or an organization works with a psychologist. Like maybe they want them to be their permanent employee for their research and department for research and development purposes, or they work them as a consultant, right? They utilize their expertise for enhancing their workplace productivity, for satisfaction, motivation issues, for improving their hiring and training processes, and the list goes on. Ultimately, a company needs to realize that they are hiring an expert, right? And when you hire an expert, you should trust their expertise. And it's something that I've noticed, that a company likes the idea of working with a psychologist. They have apprehension with trusting their expertise. And I think it's see, the lack of trust could be because of many reasons. Because maybe they don't trust the person, maybe they don't trust the discipline. I think we all understand our discipline has some major myths associated with it. But also because of this notion which has been so much perpetuated in the society, that OB psychologists specifically, we talk about this ideal world. And this is also something that even I face today. Till today, I still have this conversation where a person will say that, Samiksha, what you are suggesting and what you're talking about is, maybe it could be applied in an ideal world, but not in today's world. So this notion is not correct, because we don't talk about an ideal world. In an ideal world, there would be 100% satisfaction score, perfect hiring mechanism, perfect recruitment mechanism, and everybody is happy. That's ideal world. And a, which may not even work for a company following the use stress principle. Uh, you don't want idealism, and that is something we never preach. That is something we never have as our goal while we are working with a company. What we talk about is an evidence-based approach. We preach research and science. We don't preach idealism, and I think that is something that we have. That notion is something that we need to break. I think we need to come very hard at this notion, right? And yeah, for now, that's it.
I love that. I really like that. But just a second, Shivani. So, Samiksha, my just follow-up question is, how do you think we can do that? That breaking the fact that we are not looking for idealism, we are looking for realism.
Awareness, generating awareness, letting the company know, and clear communication. I think sometimes it also happens that while we are suggesting a practice or maybe we are suggesting a change, right? They may think it's about idealism and what we are trying to achieve. It's not achievable, right? So I think the clarity about the entire process. Maybe we can sit with the company and have defined goals. Those goals may not be quantifiable all the time, right? Because we sometimes we get into such complicated aspects, because at the core we at every core in psychology we're talking about individual and their behavior, right? Which is very complicated because because human beings are complicated. So I think maybe if we can define the entire process and have them know that this is what we're trying to achieve through these things, right? And these things are not, we are not talking about these things because we think it's right, because these are things which are backed by research, right? These are things where people have spent years studying on, right? So I think if we are very clear about the process and the goal, and we attack this notion by generating awareness in our communication through social media, of course, uh, I think we can make some change.
Yeah. Interesting points. I have two thoughts there, but I'll hold them for now. Anybody else?
Yes,
So,
Tajda here. I hope my voice is clear because I've got a bad connection problem and I'm also out in the open. So apologies for any background noise in advance. Just to some of the points that Chaitanya, I hope I'm saying that correctly, and Samiksha made, very valid observances. One thing that I would add over here is, I think when it comes to the decision maker, ultimately, sometimes they're unable to find value in what a psychologist perhaps might be doing at the organization is because do not understand it from their own value system. It is imperative, in my belief, that there needs to be a certain level of therapeutic environment, safe space creation, where these people can understand their own humanity, which ultimately is serving, in most times, a corporation whose visions, values, purpose lives on a PPT and nothing else. Those values are not modeled into actions that seep into how they leadership models the kind of behavior that the rank and file is supposed to follow. So whatever they are coming out of needs to have a coherent point, usually tied with setting values for an organization, which works it up. We work up from human values to the concept of purpose, individual level, and then collectively, what is the vision of an organization? So ultimately, the first person that needs to agree to this entire mandate is the decision maker. And in this particular case, some level of therapy is recommended so they understand what the benefits of this is, because it's very hard to explain. Language, I believe, is in it of itself a very flawed tool for communication, and people who aren't familiar with those levels of themselves, self-awareness is perhaps not that high, are normally not equipped with the right words to be able to describe what they're feeling, and therefore not be able to rally people accordingly around them, especially so if you're a leader. And to Samiksha's point about defining what these mean, absolutely, I think there needs to be agreement or at least alignment on what certain words mean. For example, success. How do you define success? Do you define success as an organization that makes a lot of money and its HR is churning out people for recruitment left, right, and center? Or do you define success as work-life balance, a vibrant culture where the employees take ownership of the entire organization? And HR's metrics are not just recruitment, but overall well-being. So I think a lot of these, it's a multi-layered kind of challenge that we're kind of approaching. And all of these are very valid observations in terms of what can be done. In my opinion, start with the leader, start with helping them understand their values, and then show them the value of the work that a psychologist can impart. I don't know if anyone watches this TV program called Billions. There's a character in there that is something, I believe, Wendy Rhodes. She is a please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a psychologist, neither am I medically trained in this profession. But she's an organizational psychologist whose job is to put people in the right mindset. So anyone having a problem comes into her office. 20 minutes later, they've got sort of like a quick fix. I don't think it's a good a quick fix is never the solution, but just the notion of having someone like that for support within an organization, I think its time has come, and anyone who's not kind of keeping up with it will eventually have to come to this, because the value of an organization is its human capital and not its finance. Sorry for the long-winded answer.
That's okay. We like those. Interesting points, Tajdar, and obviously you said like this need for that safe space. I don't know if you know, but a lot of us have been in that position where, we have acted as safe space for organizations. And what we come across, at least personally, what I've come across is rather than people coming to you with problems, they come to you seeking solutions and give the right answer. Or it's not our jobs as organizational psychologists to give therapy. It is not. If we are pretending as counselors, it is wrong. Juhi will hate me if I go into counseling. She's like, "What are you doing in counseling? You're a psychometrician, for God's sake." Um, but I appreciate the thought. I would love your perspective even further, Tajdar, because, like you said, you're not a psychologist, and you're the kind of people we want to help and make sure that we are getting our points across. So definitely chime in as the conversation goes. Shivani, you've been trying for long, so yeah, why don't you unmute?
Actually, Tajdar kind of like summed it very well what I wanted to say. But like, if I put it in a sentence, it's just like how people, like a person with a mental disorder or a mental illness, goes to a clinical psychologist, and that person isn't immediately cured. Healing is a process for that individual. So you never stop healing, no matter how many tools or how many, uh, ways or methods you've been given by the psychologist. So it's the same for an organization. You can't, like, an organization can't just have a training module on leadership development and it's completely cured of the leadership problem. So they can't, even the organization needs to have a healing process. And I think for that, like, psychologists, like especially organizational psychologists, are essential to be present in the organization to, like, develop programs for the long term health of the organization. So I think that's what my perspective is.
Yeah, no, totally agree with you that we are needed. If that wasn't the case, I would be jobless. And so would a lot of people be here. So agree. We are needed, we are required, but it's less about why are we needed. We know we are and we know the reasons, but what is it that we can do to make it easy for people to work with us? We have a completely different dictionary from people. Like sometimes the terminologies that we use, people are like, wait, what? I don't get it. So then how do we counteract that?
I think that it is more important for us to show people where they could be after they hire us, as compared to where they are now. Because if you don't tell people about what or how they're going to benefit from us, then I think there is a communication gap. So for them to know what we could bring to their table, it is very important for us to assertively state that you guys are here, and after, like, you hire us, you're going to be a few steps ahead. Because if you don't tell them, they're never going to know.
Yep, and that is good points, Varali. And I guess like it's more about create a vision.
Yeah.
So don't just say you're gonna hire 10 people after this, after you get me in and I'll handle your recruitment, or this is gonna happen, I'm gonna cure this and this. But create a vision.
Yeah.
This is how the organization will look, this is how the transformation will look, this is the strategy, here's a vision board.
Right.
And I guess like at least I've seen a lot of psychologists prefer not to do that. Lot of reasons, one of them being we don't know if it will work or not. It's a risk to set a vision and then not achieve it, because a lot can go wrong.
But then don't you, like, even in case of other consultants which the companies hire or get in collaboration with, I'm not 100% sure whether they nail it in the first go. Like,
Exactly.
obviously, like, if there are going to be multiple tries and multiple attempts for other things, why not us?
Exactly. Well, exactly my point. Why not?
And rather, I guess we are working on the most important asset of the company rather than the other consultants. Like money can come and go, assets can come and go, liabilities may go up or down. But human resource, like if you don't have human resource, your company is not going anywhere despite you have the million worth assets.
If they have robots, but anyway, um, what about Gurleen? You have been awfully quiet. So what is your
I'm just thinking so many good inputs. I think I agree with, and I think you all have covered a lot of it already. But I think when it comes to solutions, I can probably share what I personally do. So one is I research a lot. So I would and research the industry. So for instance, if a client has reached out to me, then I would go through their website. I will try to understand their industry, their competitors, what is the benchmark, and then most of my clients are startups. So what I do is I read a lot about those startups. I read a lot about the founders or the founding team. And when you go on online and you put in the name of the startup, you'll get a million, like hundreds of articles or hundreds of interviews about those people, about those founders. So when you watch those videos on YouTube or when you read more about them, they also share the value of the company, why it's important to them, what is the purpose of that organization. That way you can actually customize your solution, and you can actually customize your language in a way that they understand the context, they understand that what is the ROI that my intervention is going to bring to them. So I'm using all the psychology based models or foundation in my solution, but they won't even know, because a simple design is something which you see and you don't even get to know that it is, there's a lot of thought that has gone behind it. It has to be so simple. So it has to be really simple that that the client understands it at the one in the one go, but it has to be really deep. So like I think Samiksha said, it has to be research based and not like what I as Gurleen I think is right. But how maybe competitors have used that kind of model or a similar kind of a framework, and how they have developed so and so, and how we can probably do it with minor changes or whatever. That depends on the strategy with, that we take. But I think it starts from the research. It starts from right when you get a lead in your inbox. And that's what
I love that. Yeah, I love that, Gurleen. I like absolutely love the fact a lot of people missed out on that step of researching your client and of really going like digging deep about who you're going to be speaking to, because you have a strategy off the shelf, use it 10 times, it's scalable. But when you tweak your language a little bit, even something like don't call people who apply incumbents, call them candidates, because that's what they use. It just makes the process that much smoother because everybody's on the same page. It just makes their lives easier. So I love that point. I'm gonna throw this in there, and it might be a curveball, but um, some of the feedback that I've received from people who work with psychologists and are not psychologists is you guys are too technical. So you, especially psychometricians, Samiksha, so especially in London, like you're too technical. I don't care what technicalities you're selling. Sell it to me in business words. What is it that the management will get out of it? What is it that the business will look like? What is the story behind it? And that really stumps me because I'm like, I can talk to you about other concepts, but talking to you about psychometrics in a story format is much harder because like how much does candidate experience matter? That's all I can speak about in psychometrics. So then you have to create a story, you have to think about business values instead of just being a technical sell. So other strategies that anybody has applied here, I would love to know.
Uh, so, uh, so yesterday I was having a word with my guide, so and my fellow of my co-trainees. So there's this company from Jamshedpur. So their HR policies were totally flawed. I mean, they had no direction. So my mentor and some of my co-trainees, they helped the organization, in building the HR frameworks, which started from competency framework. So they dug deep into the whole process, and now the company has got a direction. So I think what the point I'm trying to mention here is that digging deep is very important, and value, like showing the value, what is the purpose behind it, because ultimately it all starts from the top. As and Sakshi, you were mentioning that psychologists are too technical. So I mean, see, as long as because now what the thing is, everything is related to business. Psychologists and HR, whether you're working as an HR working or whether you're working any profession, you need to understand the business. So if you understand the business and you are able to tell them as to what's it in for you, I think that would work, because ultimately it's all about, we all think from that perspective, that what's it in for us. So that's how I would like to put it.
And
Absolutely.
a very interesting thing is that people don't expect rocket scientists and mechanical engineers to simplify their concepts. And we are expected to simplify our concepts because they think that um, it's a very novice field, since we talk about individual behavior and individuals are everywhere, and it's very simple. So you know what, I would actually say to not, of course, simplify the concepts as long as you're being true to them, right? I mean, I would never ever compromise on a concept just because of just because somebody doesn't understand it. Maybe they do not understand CFA or EFA of psychometric science, and that's okay. And that's why I am here for. Yes, I can explain it to you, but do you really have to go in depth of it? And do you really want them to understand in baby terms? Because I cannot do that. A baby cannot understand statistics. And that is why I think and that is why I'll repeat the point. If you have hired an expert, trust their guidance. They know what they're doing. And I think that trust needs to be built. They need to know that they are talking to somebody who has a credential, right? And they know what they're doing. So that is something I think we and the organization also, they need to work and respect our discipline for what it is rather than what they think it is.
Yeah.
But Samiksha, sorry to cut you. So I just have a question. So let's say if a psychologist, like I'm not a psychologist, so I'm just like asking purely from a layman's perspective. So suppose you're a psychologist and I'm working with you, assuming that I'm from the business, but the thing is, okay, I trust your expertise, but if I also need to understand something, in at least a broad overview. So I know that I'm trusting you, but on your part, at least you need to give me that simple broad overview so that I know that, okay, I'm aware that
Absolutely. So the clear communication has to be there. They need to know why we are doing it and the right objectives. Like Colleen said, the entire thing should be research based, should be evidence based, and clear communication regarding the process, regarding the goal, regarding the outcome. It has to be there, right? But yes, it's Sakshi made a very good point that they sometimes, it also happens to me that they like, what is validity, why are we doing a second pilot for this, right? So very small things, and yes, sometimes it's easy for them to understand, and sometimes even I can translate everything into business terms. But until unless you're really ready to understand the nuances of a research, for example, because there are so many intricacies of a research, right? I mean, sometimes you are not happy with the number of items that you've accepted, right? So you have to do a second pilot. I'm using a very crude example, but sometimes things are what they are, right? And not everything can be 100% justified, right?
true.
When you're talking about research, I mean, it can be justified, but not in business terms, because for them, they talk about profit and loss. It's basically a balance sheet for them, right? And not everything in research or psychometrics, or even in the entire psychology, we cannot transform everything into plus and minus. Sometimes it's also the right thing, wrong thing, or doing this and seeing the effects and then modifying the strategies. There are so many things that we do, and and that's where the trust needs to be there. I mean, clear communication is there regarding the goals, process, objectives, everything is there, but they should know that if you're suggesting something, it's coming from a place of some experience of knowledge and research.
So basically,
I
both
like
of them have to be on the same page, the psychologist
Absolutely.
and the client. Got it. Understood.
The goal should be, the goal is that, of course.
Yeah, and I like your point, Samiksha, because from what I'm getting from it, it sounds like, and we have all, I guess, faced this. Everybody thinks they can be a psychologist because it's
Yeah.
that easy. and it's intuitive, and what we are studying, everybody can see it. It's not like rocket science. It's happening somewhere, and you need XYZ experience for that. So everybody thinks they can be a psychologist, they can understand it. What they don't know is there are a lot of nuances, a lot of intricacies, a lot of expertise that goes into studying psychology and being a psychologist. And hence why I think they look for that, tell me everything, I'll understand it. And when they don't, what happens is, they feel like they can't trust you, or there's something wrong, or it's not simple enough. And I think, Samiksha, am I correct that you're saying don't simplify it too much, because that's your expertise? Like, they don't have a degree, of course they won't understand it. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yes, I mean, simplify it to an extent that they understand it, but not misunderstand it.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, sometimes we do talk about a very and I've seen people do that. My fellow psychologists do that, that they, I mean, their intentions are good, that they're talking about a very technical thing, and they would simplify it so much that everybody would be like, oh, you really do this. It's as easy as, writing an essay about yourself. So as long as you're true to the concept, don't oversimplify things, because we do not deal with simple things. We deal with very complicated things, and you have to believe in your expertise, right? And if it's something that a person cannot understand, it's okay, help them out, clear communication, but don't oversimplify it too much that you're not being true to that technical concept.
Yeah. And I guess, like, I'm guilty of doing that even in general conversations. When your friends don't get a concept, you're like, oh, but that feeling is equals that feelings. Like, now, maybe now you'll get it, and you shouldn't be doing that. um any other points, or any sort of experience of working with a client where they've given you feedback? Again, conscious of time, so we'll keep it super quick.
There is one.
Okay,
Sorry.
go on.
No, please go ahead.
Okay, so once I had helped a client to deal with work anxiety, and initially she was like, okay, this is not possible, this is not possible, how is it possible, like I cannot imagine myself without anxiety. And I was like, it is definitely possible. And I made her take baby steps in the direction. And at the end she was like, oh, the process was tedious, but it was possible. So I think I agree with Samiksha here that unless the client trusts the psychologist, it is not going to happen. So it's again in our expertise how to break down it into baby steps, so that the client can actually achieve the goal in whichever way they can. So it's again the factor of tailoring it according to the client's needs, like not only the client's needs but according to the client's personality again matters as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so I guess, like, we keep coming back to building that trust. So what are these steps to build that trust? Because so breaking down happens after they've started trusting you, and you're sharing with them, what's going to happen and what's the journey. How do you build the trust when you've just met them, you're introducing yourself to a client, you want to establish yourself as the expert there?
I think client testimonial is the best thing. So let's say if I am working somewhere, or like I have approached you, I would just simply say, okay, here are our testimonials, just have a word with them. And now they might be the prospective client might be having that school of thought that, whatever feedback that I might have received, they might be paid or something like that. But I think the best thing is testimonials are the best thing, because people won't, give you a fake feedback. That's what I think. And because obviously when they give you feedback, they will see that if the client, or for example, I have served like 5 clients, and if those 5 clients have felt little bit of value or impact in my services, then obviously then they would give up a positive word of mouth. So that will also kind of build a trust.
Okay, so feedbacks, testimonials, and maybe case studies. That's one way.
I think adding to Chaitanya's point, it is very important that you make the client feel that the testimonials are actually valid. So you also need to keep your poise in front of the person as the testimonial creates. So you cannot be unprofessional, like you have to be true to your values. You have to create the safe space which the other testimonial claims that we provide. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I'll hold on to that for now. Any other points on
For me,
I want to share. Sorry, Gurleen, please.
okay, for me, I think I really like Simon Sinek's idea of, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So I think your why has to be like crystal clear. So for instance, we all are connected on LinkedIn. So whatever post you are putting, your why has to come from those posts, because like Chaitanya said, a lot of work that we get is through word of mouth. So how does that spread in the network? It spreads through your communication, what you are talking about, what is there on your website. So I think as a vendor or as a partner, your why has to be really clear. So what to aata rahega, like solutions and whatever services you are offering, that's there. But your why has to be clear, and that is how you differentiate between Apples of the world and David Harley, Davidson of the world, right?
Yeah.
So that is the differentiator.
I agree with Gurleen. I think the value that you're bringing in the organization uh, needs to be the focus of a conversation. They need to know what you're bringing on the table. And actually, my point is the point that I'm trying to make is a very basic thing, and maybe some of you may not even agree with it, but I have seen this a lot, especially in consultants. They sell themselves short a lot, right? And I think to build trust is start from a place where you are, of course, the research is there, you understand the work, you know what you're getting into, you know the company, you know the founders, but ask what you deserve and do not sell yourself short. I mean, your services are very valuable. Believe in those values, believe in your importance. And I've seen this so in so many people, like sometimes, so I get some projects and I don't take up many projects, and I just give reference to my colleagues, give references of my colleagues to that company. And then after some time, maybe I'm talking to them and they talk to me that yes, this they have signed on, they've accepted this project. And when I get to know the money that they have taken for this project, I'm usually disappointed and tell them that, dude, I know that that company would have even given you double of this amount if had you just asked. And even that person knows that this particular project is worth that much. But I don't know why it just probably first they don't ask a lot, and then they do not negotiate well. And I think it's also, yeah, I think it's many people are not very comfortable talking about money matters, and maybe they're not comfortable with negotiating. And since psychology is a female dominated field, I think it's a industry problem that we are facing. I don't think we get our dues. The value that we bring in organizations, we uh, we are not assertive enough to tell companies that this is the value and this is the price of that value. If you want me to take care of this problem for you, if you want me to bring this value in your organization, if you want me to work on your organizational culture, or solve your problems, this is the price. And I think we need to be very clear about what we want, and we need to and we don't need to be sorry about it.
the reason some of us are smiling, Samiksha, is because we've discussed this at length. This I guess this was one of our favorite glass half fulls, where we're discussing about how do we make an impact, and the fact that impact does not come cheap. And so we know the why, we know why we do it, and we know what we have to do to take care of it. So yeah, absolutely. If you haven't seen that one, definitely see that one.
I will.
But that was, yeah, I agree, and I think we all agree, and we have had a pretty good conversation about it.
Sakshi, just a question to you. Like it's to all of us. So but sometimes what I feel that it's just another school of thought. While I agree with what Samiksha said, that we need to really value ourselves. I mean, it's not only just psychology, but other professions as well. But sometimes, don't you think that sometimes we need to act according to a situation? So I'll just give you an example. So one of my friends, so she had got a call for an internship with Deloitte. So, and the internship, like the stipend was 5,000. I mean, if you see 5,000 is literally peanuts. But then, the situation we are in, and she's also like planning to build a career in HR. So she accepted the internship because, it was Deloitte, it was a brand, and it was like the internship wasn't her choice of domain, that was talent acquisition. But if you look at the monetary part, it's like 5,000 is nothing. So don't you think that sometimes, maybe in psychology, I'm not sure if I'm correct, but maybe just because the situation is not favorable, and the psychologists need work, so they decide to give up, or I would say compromise on the monetary benefit, or the money that is being given to them. What is like your thinking, or what is your school of thought on that, like Sakshi, Gulin, and to everyone who's present here in the meeting?
I mean, obviously, 100%. Like, a lot of times we've compromised on taking the money just because we're like, oh, this is going to be a nice opportunity. This is going to get me here, it's going to get me there, blah, blah, blah. But till when do you do it? Like, I want an expensive bag. Sorry. Till when do I do this and not get it? Absolutely. And I don't know if it's wrong or right. For me, like, it's not sustainable. That's the point. It's not sustainable to do that. So, do you have to say something?
Yeah. Also, what it does is, if every psychologist thinks in this school of thought that abhi ke liye kar leta hu, baad देखेंगे, it spoils the market for the rest of us who. Hello.
Your voice is breaking.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying, those psychologists who work at lower prices for whatever value they are creating, they are spoiling the market for the rest of us who want to get paid well. I think it is like a responsibility you owe to the market and to the profession that you're in, that you don't ruin it for others. If you are okay, I know of therapists who are doing therapy for 200 rupees an hour. How do you make ends meet with 200 rupees an hour? दिन के तो 24 ही घंटे ना तुम्हारे पास. How are you going to work? You can't work all 24 hours. You can't have 24 clients a day. So what I'm trying to say is that as much as it may be that, okay, you're getting some other benefit out of it, but you have to come out of that. I call it the school mentality of, we are learning and we are gaining something else by it, so we won't get money for it. So I think that we need to grow up professionally as well as personally when it comes to all this.
Yeah, love that point, Juvi. And it's simple economics. Like, in economics, you have governing bodies that do not allow you to sell your product for too cheap or under the MRP price. There's ceilings there. And the reason there is so that somebody does not sell like Maggie for 1 rupee and it ruins the market for all other noodles. So it's similar, but we don't have a regulating body that says charge at least 600 per hour, and then it depends on your expertise and on the market. We don't have somebody like that. Even internationally, like, there's no clauses about that. Some places market is a little bit more mature where you can do those things, and then other places not so mature. Bringing us close to the session, sounds like we have had a good discussion, and a lot of us obviously have some really valid points there. Another good one topic, I think, in terms of actions, a couple of things that stand out to me are: research your client, research what you're going to do, define your goals, but don't oversimplify. Don't try to just tell a story or just be technical. Have a balance. And then definitely think about your impact and ask what your value is, or what you think your value is, because it does not come cheap and it shouldn't come cheap. And then really think about building yourself up and your business up in terms of testimonials, what you're doing, having your own values, your own brand as a personal like human being. And lastly, just understand the business you're working with. Don't be shy to actually learn about the business that you're working with or the client you're working with. If it's not psychology, even if it's like a IT company, there's no harm in reading up about what it is. Just because you're a psychologist doesn't mean that we shouldn't be reading about other things. Hopefully that all makes sense. I guess like one thing to take back is think about how can you build more trust, because that was the theme today almost, that how do you build trust with clients, especially when you're just going to be meeting them once. It doesn't even come to the steps or the vision or anything. Just once you meet them, how do you establish yourself as an expert? Think about those maybe, and let us know if anybody comes up with a brilliant ground smashing idea. It'd be good for all of us. Yeah, another good session. Thank you, everyone. Any last comments, Gulleen?
I think one last point which I want to add is, I think the goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. I think the goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. So I think that match has to be there.
Love that. Absolutely love it. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Hopefully it went well. Don't hate on us if it didn't. Just come back again.
All right, guys. Any comments before
Thanks,
I end the? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want.
Tajdar, if you're saying something, we can't hear you.
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Tajdar.
All right, sorry.
Yes.
Just one last word from me, which I think, so the trust part, I think one of the superpowers over there is great, do everything, do the research and know who you're sitting in front of. But when you're sitting in front of them, listen, because they have a story to tell. And ultimately, your client is going to be a human being. The their ego is the decision maker. Understanding the human being goes a long way in establishing that trust, especially if you're coming with a story that you've done it for other people. So yeah, that was my only thought. Thank you again for a very informative session, guys. Really loved hearing all the views.
Perfect. Hopefully see all of you again and real soon in 2 weeks, and we'll come up with something nice topic, Gurleen. Will be a challenge.
All right,
Perfect.
guys. Bye.
Thank
Have a good
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much, guys.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
weekend ahead. Bye-bye.
Bye. Good
Thank you.
weekend.